Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to talk a little bit about putting your kids in the best position to be successful. And we're going to talk and use a little buzzword or a term today called giving them one job. And I'm going to explain a little bit of that with some of our defensive talk. But the last couple weeks, the last 3 weeks, I've been to 2 different clinics and picked up some good coaching concepts. You know, not necessarily schematically anything world beating or anything real new schematically, but just listening to some different coaches and some secondary guys and some defensive guys talk about football, and you know, a couple different guys use the term give them one job, and basically what that means is, you know, put a kid in position to be successful. Don't ask them to do 2 or 3 different things and expect that that kid can do all of those things, especially if he's not in position to do so. And you know, I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how it relates to some of our concepts on defense. All right, we're going to look a little bit today at our traditional quarter-half coverage. We're a quarter-half team. You know, it kind of started back from when I was a 3-4 defensive guy, and we were a field defensive team, and we would line up field, and we'd be quarter-half. And you know, one of the reasons was, you know, for us now as a 4-2-5 team, our extra safety is going to be to the passing strength. All right, so right now we've got a 2-back set, all right, with a detached number 2. All right, it really wouldn't matter 2 by 1 for us if it was a detached number 2 or not. It's going to matter on the front side of the coverage, but the back side to the single is not going to matter. But we've got a detached 2 receiver set here. We've got a single receiver set there, and we've got 2 backs in the backfield. All right, so anytime we see a 2-back set, we're going to be, you know, pretty much an old-fashioned 8-man quarter-half concept. It's going to look like a lot of old-fashioned 8-man Virginia Tech robber stuff, but we're a quarter-half team. We're not a true robber team. To the single receiver side, though, we will look just like a robber team, or that is essentially the same in premise. It's just a matter of how you choose to play. All right, but for us, to the single side, the reason we're a half team, okay, is because right now I have the front set up for us with the front set away from the passing strength. All right, so I've got my 3 technique in the over front defense. I've got my 3 technique set away from the passing strength. All right, so what that means is my Mike linebacker on the inside, his primary run gap is the inside A gap. Okay, so a lot of guys will say, well, Coach, if you're a quarters team, why don't you just play quarters on both sides? And for me, it's just for one simple reason. I want to give the Mike one job to do. I don't want to give him 2 jobs to do. Okay, so for me, if you're telling me that you are playing a quarters concept or even a robber concept, that will involve having some type of down, underneath, outside linebacker, strong safety that is a flat player. All right, that can handle 2 to the flat and handle wheel routes. Okay, so, you know, on this side where we have the extra safety, we can play a quarters concept, a robber concept, or a 2-read concept because we have the extra down safety. All right, on this side we're short of down safety, and my Mike linebacker is in the A gap. So in order for me to play a quarters concept on this side of the field, technically, my Mike linebacker would be the guy that has to carry 2 into the flat and run with 2 on the wheel if you want to play quarters defense by rule. And I'm not talking about blanket 1/4 of the field or a cover 4 concept where these guys just defend the 1/4 of the field. I'm talking about quarters concepts where the safety is an insert player in the run game. The safety handles 2 vertical, and if the safety doesn't get 2 vertical, then he can play vision and break off the quarterback to rob. Some of the routes are off of 1, or maybe he can rob to the middle of the field. All right, in the old days, you used to just rob post-dig curl on 1, and I think what guys are finding out now is you can gain a lot more out of this robber quarters player if you were to play vision and break, and if the quarterback is looking to the 2 receiver side, you may be able to gain this guy to the middle of the field. Okay, well, because my Mike linebacker is in the A gap, I don't feel comfortable having him run with a 2 to the flat, all right, and carry 2 on the wheel. So to me, in my rule, by definition, I cannot play quarters on the back side of this defense. Okay, so what we choose is we choose to play, all right, a half concept. or a cover 2 concept. Okay, so I want my Mike linebacker to be a hard inside A-gap player, and when the pass game comes, I don't want him to have to run to the flat, especially if he's out leveraged by a number 2. All right, I don't expect him to beat 2 to the flat while playing A-gap in the run game. All right, so we play a half concept to the single receiver side. All right, and that's one of the issues that I think you can get into, is giving your Mike linebacker one job. Okay, if he's an A-gap player inside on the run, make him an A-gap player on the run, but then make him a hook to curl player in the passing game. Don't ask him to be an A-gap player inside, but yet at the same time he's got to get outside and over the top of number 2 to the flat. Okay, I think you're asking that kid, or you're putting that kid in a bind, especially in high school with the players that we have. I don't know how many teams have Mike linebackers that can do that, so put him in a position to be successful. Okay, so now we're going to work on our cover 2 concept. We're going to talk a little bit about our cover 2 concept. Okay, you have really 2 different ways that you can play your cover 2 concept on the backside. You can play it with cloud support, or you can play it with sky support. Because really, to the single side of the formation, what you're saying is they have one receiver that we have to handle deep. Now, based on the position of the number 2 in the backfield and the tendencies of the offensive football team they're playing, can number 2 go vertical? All right, I think if you study your film, especially in high school, and you look at the teams you're playing, if it's to a single receiver side, that number 2, all right, probably less than 5, maybe 5% to 10% of the time, that number 2 goes vertical. He may come out and wheel on you now, all right, but very rarely do they take a 2 from out of the backfield and run vertical. All right, and when you do see that, you usually see him in some type of cheated fullback or sniffer position, and maybe on some type of play action pass they can get him down the seam. Okay, all right, but right now what we're really talking about defending is we're defending a single, all right, down the deep side of the field. All right, now when you're playing your cover 2 concept, the first thing you got to ask yourself is, what is the primary role, all right, of the D-gap flat defender? What are you really asking him to do? Okay, and what are you trying to take away from the offense? All right, and when I say that, I'm going to speak about the corner first in general, and I'm going to give you 2 different theories, all right, and then I'm going to tell you, when and where I think you should use them, and what I think you can and can't ask of your corner. Okay. For us, at the high school level, and again, this is for me, this is my preference, I am going to play the corner in what I call a slice technique, okay? And what that means is I am going to hold him back on the snap of the ball, all right? I am not going to roll him down. I'm going to play him at about 6 to 7 yards off. We want to make this look like a too-high structure. We want to make it look like it's palms or quarters, okay? And then what I like to do is on the snap of the ball, I like to slam this corner down inside, hard to the D-gap, reading through the end man on the line of scrimmage, all right, looking at the end man on the line of scrimmage to the triangle, back to that near back right there, okay? The reason I like to do that is to that single side, the first thing I am going to make sure, for me as a defensive coordinator in high school, I'm going to take away single side runs first. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to make sure that guy, his one job is to take away single side runs first. That's the first thing we're going to do. Okay, now from there, all right, I feel like he's in a better position to support D-gap runs, and I feel like if I do a good job teaching him with the right player, I feel like he's in a better position to fold on runs to the strong side. Okay, so if my first all right, notion for me as a defensive coordinator to the single side is to stop the run, that's how I feel like I'm going to be a little bit more effective. That slice technique, slamming them down inside hard, moving them down towards the run game to be a D-gap player or a cutback player or a fold player. I think, and we've been more successful, and I think we have an easier time in high school asking kids to do that. Okay. Now that means in the pass game, all right, that I am going to have to ask him to now get a foot in the ground and retreat and rally to the flat. So he may be late getting underneath the number 1 receiver. He may be late getting underneath, all right, the hitch route. All right, he may be late getting underneath the out cut. He should be right in the slant window already, so that shouldn't be an issue. Okay, but where he will be is he will be in a good position to play any number 2 coming out of the backfield and into the flat. Okay. All right, so when we play them on the slice technique, all right, we are playing them down on the snap of the ball. We're screaming them down inside to play D-gap run and fold cut back away, okay? And then we are in a position, we are probably going to be a little bit late to the hitch in the out cut, but we'll be in position to rally and make a tackle. We'll be in great position to play number 2 to the flat. So again, you have to ask yourself what you are trying to do and what you are trying to take away. Now, if we're going to slice here, that means that your number 1 receiver is going to get a clean free release. All right? So if your number 1 receiver is going to get a clean free release, you would better have that safety ready to play a little bit further over the top of that number 1 and not really be a true half player. He's more of a man-to-man, don't get beat deep player. Okay? He's more of a man-to-man, don't get beat deep by number 1 player. All right? Because that number 1 is getting a free release. All right? So he's got to widen and maybe be a little bit deeper than normal so he can play all those routes of 1 over the top. Okay? And then your Mike linebacker on that side is going to be your hook to curl player, and he's going to have to work real hard to see if he can wall that 2 going vertical, because we're not in the greatest position to play a number 2 vertical. And again, we don't play the deep player in a true half technique, okay? Because for us in high school, 95% of the throws to the single we see are going to be out here, all right? Teams don't get the number 2 vertical. Okay, so we choose to play more of a man, don't get beat deep concept, okay, with our deep player to the cover 2 side, all right? And if we're using the corner, we like to use what we call a slice technique from the corner, okay? Again, asking my corner to be heavily involved in D-gap runs and heavily involved in cutback or fold runs, okay? Knowing that we're giving up a free release to the number 1, knowing that we might be late on the hitch in the outcut, okay? Now, if you wanted to defend, and this could be a down and distance thing, or this could be a game plan thing, depending on the type of team you're playing, okay? If their number 1 is a stud and you don't want him clean releasing, and they throw a lot of underneath balls to number 1, okay, you may want to come up here and play a funnel technique, okay, where you are going to hard jam that number 1 receiver and try and force him inside, okay? You are going to disrupt the timing of his routes. You are going to take away the hitch throw. You are going to take away the outcut. All right, and you are going to disrupt that number 1, and you are going to funnel and hard jam him inside. Okay, that could be a down and distance thing. It could be a game plan thing. That's all up to you. If you are doing that, just understand, all right, that he is going to be late to the D gap. Okay, if he's concentrating on rerouting that number 1, he had better be a real special player if he can reroute that number 1, get rid of it, and show up in the D-gap to slam runs right now. Now, if you're into the boundary, it's not that big of a deal. I think you can get away with that into the boundary, all right, because the runs that show to the boundary on such a short space, I think he has a chance to force those. All right? I still think he's going to be late, so if you're getting some type of speed or load option or some type of, outside zone or something there, I still think he's going to be a little bit late because his primary focus right now is on jamming, rerouting, and funneling number 1. Okay? And you also have to understand, okay, that he may be real late if he ever gets to fold the backside runs. All right? So now if you're telling your will linebacker that in that theory he's got a cutback guy, and you're allowing your will linebacker to run like heck, all right, because there's a cutback player, when you're using him in a funnel technique, he's going to be real late to fold. So if you're doing that, you have to understand, all right, you have to understand that that corner is going to be real late to fold now, all right? And if he's real late to fold, then your will or your Mike here in this drawing, because of the way we have the front set, your Mike better not be playing as fast to the front side because he doesn't have a guy to slow down the cutbacks back there, because this guy is now funneling and he's going to be late on all the folds. Okay? But you may be late to the D-gap and you may be late on your folds, okay? But you're going to be great. You're going to be great on your reroutes. You're going to be great on the hitch. You're going to be great on the outcut. So you're going to take away those immediate throws to number 1. Okay? You're also going to be in great position for 2 to the flat. all right, if they want to run any 1 inside, 2 to the flat, because you're already outside on the number 1, so you're going to be in great position when 2 delivers himself to the flat. Okay, so you are gaining a couple things by playing him in a funnel or a hard jam technique up there, but you got to understand what you're losing so that you understand how to coach that kid. So when you get him up there to play a hard funnel reroute, if he's a little bit late to the D gap, you can't jump all over that kid and tell him that he's really got to get to the D gap. If you get a run that cuts back on you behind the mic and he doesn't get there to fold, you got to be real careful hammering that kid about getting there to fold if you're also asking him to reroute. All right? If you want him in the D gap and you want him to fold, then play him in a slice technique and play him down there. If you want to take away the routes of 1 underneath and you want to disrupt 1, maybe on 3rd and 7, well then get him out there and understand that he's going to be late. So don't give the kid 2 jobs. Give the kid 1 job to do that he can do successfully, and then coach the heck out of him doing that job. All right, and make sure he gets a good jam. Make sure he funnels inside and doesn't get beat to the outside. Make sure he helps that safety by throwing him inside. Okay, but if you give him 1 job, I think you can coach the heck out of him, and then you can be really, really firm with what you demand from that player in that job. Okay, but if you give him 2 jobs, then you better hope he's a real darn good player, because I don't think you can be as firm saying, look, you've got to do this and be good at both of them. Okay? So just make sure you understand, or at least you know what you're asking your kid to do, all right, so that you can kind of understand where the expectations are and how firm you can be. If you're giving him 1 clear-cut job, well, then you hammer that kid when he doesn't do that job, and you expect him to do a great job doing it. If you're giving him 2 or 3 responsibilities, okay, well then, be careful with what you're asking him to do, all right? Now, you could also, on this side, we play a lot of, because of what we see, we play a lot of inverted halves. Okay, we play a lot of inverted halves where we're going to buzz down and play a sky support here, and then we're going to play a deep corner over the top there. Same scenario, you got a D-gap player, you got a D-gap force player, you got a cutback player. Now your Mike linebacker can play pretty fast because he's got somebody behind him. All right, this guy is here, so he knows that he can fold those runs to the backside. All right, again, when we throw him down from this look, we may be a little bit late. All right, we may be late to the hitch. We may be late to the outcut, okay? But we are going to be right where we belong on D-gap runs, and we're going to be right where we belong if we teach it right and we do it right in the fold game. So again, I have to understand the technique I'm using with that kid, okay? The technique I'm using with that kid and what I'm asking him to do along with what he might be late to, okay? On the other side, let me give you a scenario, okay? I know some people do this, and I know there's some real good people that do it. It's something that we just don't choose to do, again, because I want to put my kids in a good position. When we are playing a quarters concept, all right, to a detached number 2 receiver, one of the first things we do, all right, is we make a 2-read check, okay? What the 2-read check allows me to do is it allows me to play my down safety at an apex position inside of number 2, okay? So now my down safety is in a better fold run support position here, okay? He's in a better fold run support position, and the 2-read check takes him out of being responsible for 2 to the flat. Because remember, if this was a true quarters theory, this safety or outside linebacker would be responsible for 2 to the flat, okay? So when we make our 2-read check and we apex him inside, all right, we apex him inside, all right, we're not giving him 2 jobs anymore, all right? We're telling him that he is now involved in the run game heavily. He doesn't have to support or force the run, all right, because he's probably going to get cracked. So now we're in more of a read force scenario here, depending on how they want to block the perimeter, because if they block 2, all right, or the apex with 2, the free safety is going to support, okay? So we're not telling him that he's got to be the primary hard force player, and we're not telling him that he's got to take number 2 on the wheel route. We're telling him to be inside and become more of a curl to flat defender, go to the flat when 3 delivers you to the flat, 2 doesn't cross my face, 3 doesn't out-leverage me, okay? And we're asking him to be more involved heavily in the run game, okay? Because he's in the apex position. But what we've done is we've taken 2 to the flat out of all right, out of his game plan. Whereas if you were to play true quarters, okay, if you were to play true quarters from here, if you got the post route and the wheel route, by definition, in quarters coverage, okay, this guy is responsible for 2 to the flat. So if you don't make any quarters check, all right, he is responsible for 2 to the flat, and he's got 2 on the wheel by definition. Now, if you play some type of robber, or you have a different definition for how your corner plays in quarters, then that's fine. For us, in our definition, our corner is going to play all of 1 deep. He's going to play all of 1 except the shallow. And when we play quarters, the idea is when 2 goes to the flats, we want to double their best receiver. That's one of the reasons you play quarters concepts on defense. I want to get a double on their number 1 if 2 goes to the flat. Okay? So, if I wanted to play a quarters concept, what I would do is I would take my down safety and I would play him outside of number 2. Okay? Because now that he's outside of 2, I feel like he's in a better position. If 2 wants to go to the flat, I feel like I've already aligned him up in a position of leverage. So now I'm comfortable asking this safety to play quarters, to play D-gap run support, because he's already outside leverage, all right? I'm comfortable with him playing D-gap run support. I'm comfortable with him being the wheel player of number 2 because of the position that I put him in with leverage. So I'm not asking him to do 2 jobs. If I move him inside, we play 2 read and I don't make him play the wheel. If I play him outside and we play quarters, now he can play the wheel and he can be a D-gap player and a hard force player. Okay, again, I just don't think you want to give him 2 jobs. I think you want to give him 1 job and put him in a better position to do that job. Now, that quarters job now becomes tougher on this player because he now has number 2 vert, okay, but he is the hard, all right, he's the hard falling guy in the run game because of the position you put that down safety in. So when number 2 is removed, I think the quarters pressure, all right, I think a lot of the pressure goes on that player now because he's got 2 vert, but at the same time, he's got to be able to fall in and be an extra guy in the run game because you're losing the guy that you played in quarters. Okay? So again, just talking about different coverage concepts and giving your guys 1 job that they can do to be successful. Okay? 1 job that they can do to be successful. All right? Trying not to give them 2 different jobs. All right? I'll show you another one that gets some people in trouble. All right? And again, these could all be down and distance things, but you know, I had some guys who really like playing cover 2 and they want to play cover 2 to 3-by-1. Okay? They want to play cover 2 to 3-by-1, which, you know, at the end of the day, each his own. You choose what you want to do. It doesn't really matter. But if you were dead set on playing some type of cover 2 and you say, all right, in 3-by-1, we want to trap the bubble and, you know, we want to take away the underneath throws to number 1, all right, whatever your reasoning may be, all right, if you said that you wanted to play, and again, we're not talking about any adjustments now, all right, we're just talking about playing cover 2 and maybe Tampa 2, all right, maybe a Tampa 2 scenario to 3-by-1, okay, all right, and now you're going to ask this inside linebacker, okay, you're going to ask him to be a B-gap run player, okay, but then you're also going to ask him to be a long wall 3 player, or you're going to ask him to possibly be a Tampa 2 middle hole dropper, okay? So that in cover 2, when you're getting this cover 2 concept, all right, you're going to take one of those inside linebackers and you're going to ask him to be a Tampa 2, all right, long wall of 3 or Tampa 2 dropper. All right, I think you're asking a lot of a high school player to be a hard B-gap run player, but at the same time, all right, be a long wall of 3 or a Tampa 2 player. All right, again, I think to me, that's giving a kid 2 jobs. All right, I think you're giving him 2 different jobs to do. Okay, and I don't think you can be as successful in high school football giving a kid 2 jobs. All right, so you'd be better off making some type of 3-by-1 check that alleviates the pressure from that linebacker of being the long wall player so that he can play the inside part of the run game. Okay? All right, now, in speaking of that, one of the 3-by-1 checks that I try and stay away from to the best of my ability is I try and stay away from using the backside safety, all right? Using the backside safety as the long wall of 3 player, okay? And this is just a personal preference for me because I think it's very hard for this guy to be a long wall of 3, but yet a D-gap run player. All right? Because again now, if you were playing some type of concept where your safety was a long wall of 3, that means you're playing man on him, and your Mike linebacker or your Will linebacker is playing man on the back. Okay? So if you now get this takeoff route here, and that corner's gone, and you get some type of speed option or some type of quick running game to the D-gap single receiver side, you're asking this kid to be an extra drop-down D-gap run player. You're asking him to be a cutback player in the run game there, but at the same time, you're asking him to be a long wall of number 3 player. Okay? And to me, I just think that's real tough in high school to do. Now again, I understand every time we talk about this coverage, I've talked about it on other blogs, I understand that this coverage is one of the main go-to coverages, all right, in college football and a lot of high school football teams. This is their first 3-by-1 check. Some people call it trap, all right, some people call it triangle, some people call it stress. Whatever you call it, I understand that concept, but I think one of the main reasons that this is, all right, one of their go-to concepts, it allows you to leave your 6-box structure for the run game. It allows you to play your quarters or 2-read concepts out here, so it's really not a big change to the defense. All right, it's really not that big of a change to the defense. But if you ask me, the more and more I talk to defensive guys and try and throw questions out there, I think it's the limited coverage ability of the Sam in that position that requires a lot of guys to use the backside safety as the wall of 3 player. All right? Because I think the Sam is limited in his coverage responsibilities, okay? So that if you don't nickel or you don't personnel your team, and this is your Sam linebacker in a 3-4 or a 4-3 defense, I think his coverage options are limited. So with his coverage options limited, that's when you need to take your backside safety and now start getting some help to the long wall of 3 or the vertical of 3. Okay? All right? So to me, I think it's more of a philosophical deal, all right, than it is just a, hey, that's the coverage we love the most. I think it's a sound coverage. I think a lot of guys play it real well. But again, in high school, I think you're asking that guy, all right, I think you're asking him to do 2 distinct jobs. I think you're asking him to be an extra guy in the run game, but I think you're also asking him to be a long wall vertical of 3 player. Okay? Long wall vertical of 3 player. All right? So again, the discussion today was trying to get your guys in a situation where you're not giving them 2 jobs, where you're trying to give them 1 job. All right? Now, there's a lot of kids and a lot of guys that probably can do these and do them real well. Now, if you have that guy and he can do that, then go ahead and that's a sound coverage. All right? There's nothing wrong with the coverage. It's a great coverage. All right? For me in high school, though, I've been coaching high school football for 15 years. This will be my 16th year coming up. Odds are, chances are, I'm not going to have the type of kid that can handle that kind of responsibility on the backside of 3-by-1. Okay? And I'm either going to be asking him to be real safe to 3 vert, or I'm going to ask him to be real aggressive, but I can't ask him to do both really well. Okay? I haven't had the luxury of having that type player. All right? D1 college ball, yeah, you probably got him. NFL, yeah, you got him. All right? I haven't had the luxury of that type of player. Okay? So for us, we've always gone to more of a scenario where we are in a nickel package and we are handling the 3 receivers on the front side. All right? We're handling the 3 receivers on the front side with our DBs so that I can leave this backside safety over here, which now means to the backside I can play my normal cover 2 concepts, okay? And then I can get really good at playing cover 2 concepts to a single receiver, because whether it's 3-by-1 or 2-by-1, we're just playing cover 2 concepts to a single receiver. So I think there's a lot of carryover in that because we're just playing the formation down the middle And to this side of the formation, we don't know any different. We don't care that it's 3 by 1. All we know is that we're playing with a single receiver on that side, and we're trying to get as good as we can playing the different versions of cover 2, cloud support, sky support, slice technique, hard funnel technique. We'd like to get good at all those concepts on the backside to the single receiver. Okay? So I think that there's some carryover there. All right, again, and like I said, I went to a couple clinics the last few weeks. You don't always have to get great plays or great schemes. You get good buzzwords. You get good teaching progressions. All right, and again, one thing that reassured me, all right, I listened to a D-back coach who said, listen, don't ask a guy to do 2 things. If he's a hard funnel player, he's going to be late D-gap. If you want him in the D-gap, he's not going to be able to reroute 1. Don't ask him to do both things and then go crazy on game night and start hollering at him. All right, you're putting him in a bad position. If you're playing him with outside leverage, he's going to get beat on some inside routes. If you're playing him with inside leverage, you may give up the vertical. Okay? Just understand where you're playing the kid and what you're asking of him. If you're telling that kid you don't get beat deep, we don't give up big plays. Okay? If he's playing man-to-man with the idea in his mind that he doesn't get beat deep and you don't give up big plays, he's probably going to give up the hitch, the out. He's going to give up all those underneath. He's going to be real late rallying to him because you've ingrained in his mind not to get beat over the top. So when you give up the hitch and the out cut in that coverage, don't start hollering at that kid or at the D-back coach and say, look, we got to rally and break. We can't just give up the out or the hitch. Well, if you tell the kid not to get beat deep, don't give up the big play, okay, he's going to get beat by some of those. Okay? Just like if you put him up there to press and say, look, we're going to put you up here to press, but you can't get beat on the fade or the comeback. You're asking the kid to do something that's impossible. If you put him up there to press and you're trying to take away the hitch, the slant, and the outcut, and you're trying to, affect the timing of the quarterback and the receiver, you got to know that they're going to throw the fade and the comeback. And sooner or later, a good quarterback and a good receiver are going to complete one on you. So if you get a kid up there and play him in press coverage and they complete a fade on you, you can't jump down that kid's neck. All right? You can only ask him to do one thing or the other. So make sure you understand when you're putting kids in position, you're trying to put them in position to be successful by giving them one clear and defined job and then being very firm and demanding on how they do that job. Okay? I hope this helps you guys, regardless of what concepts or what coverages you use on defense. Hopefully it helps a little bit with defining what the roles for some of your defensive players are. Remember, you won't play well until you play fast.